So we're up to chapter 3, and I've just been having another browse of this chapter that's pretty much dedicated to volunteerism. And it's a really important thing. How can engineers and STEM practitioners volunteer? And what form might that take? Does that mean someone in the pit domain is a poor employee? Do they get satisfaction in other ways about the work that they do because of the type of work it is? Because they can see a direct benefit to the community that they're serving? Are they a member of that community? I know in Arizona, there were many individuals studying technology that wanted to give back to their own communities, some of them on native peoples' lands and reservations and so forth. And so their skill enhancement was there to return back into the community. They weren't chasing big dollars from big corporations. They were rather looking at how to make systems and processes in their own communities more sustainable, and how they could potentially get back things like internet service provisioning ownership, to have total control of the data that is emanating from their locations. And so volunteer collaborations are incredibly important. And the business of government tech also includes startups and other vendors, because we have to look at this as stakeholder collaborations. It's not just one individual or one community or one type of stakeholder. It's an inclusive approach. And so looking at things like innovation labs and digital services teams, even within the government, like the example that Sid provides is 18F. And then this notion of for the people, by the people, and citizen engagement and mutual aid. And so this is very much entrenched in American law as a notion of for the people, by the people. But how do we take that concept and apply it into the field of public interest technology? And so it really is about engaging the citizen and requiring them to come on board in order to provide insight into a given project space. However, most of these citizens that find themselves in requiring particular services are not really empowered because they usually belong to vulnerable communities and underrepresented minorities. And so expecting an individual like the unhoused to come in and participate in a project of co-design for housing with them is a little bit illusory if there is not adequate funding for that investigation and for that exploration and for that design process. So increasingly, what we're finding is while these human-centered approaches are excellent in terms of engaging people, providing feedback from people, allowing them to be inclusive in the process of design, that they require quite significant budgets. And if the budget is not there for a civic engagement requiring technology, what you'll usually find is some kind of mismatch. People drop off over a certain period of time, or volunteer organizations say, we can't go beyond this window. Here's our report, and then they move on. But making partnerships and spaces inclusive, such as those run by Arizona State University, like a decision systems theater, is very important. This is where diverse stakeholders come together, and usually some of these stakeholders are at loggerheads, and they are sitting in the same space, a neutral space where they can see visually various guises of the same issue. It could be someone wishing to provide a smart city in a new location. Well, we start to look at fauna and flora. We start to look at various stakeholders like regulators and people who have some kind of right to the land, also who are the property owners, and then specialists like conservationists or those working in the field of the environment who would come to the table and listen to one another and then see those decision screens in front of them and then say, well, I see your point of view. I see why there is outrage perhaps over a decision, or I don't see the same as you, and this is why, and here's my evidence. There is no native flora or fauna species that we would be impacting based on ecological or environmental impact statements that we've conducted. Whatever the scenario is, these are opportunities to build relationships, and the better the relationships, the better the solution. And we find that the longer term, time plays a huge part in these systems of innovation. The longer someone is engaging with someone, the greater the dividend and the greater the productivity towards the aim, because trust has been built up over time and people know what to expect of various stakeholders. But empowering all the stakeholders, not just the users, not just those who will be affected by the design, is a very important aspect that we will be discussing in the course.